Give me your awful Japan dating stories so I can feel better about mine.
Ghosting. Just lots of ghosting.
The first guy the first dated started off great. Dates were wandering around the city or taking hikes in the nearby mountains and then dinner. My mistake was agreeing to be his girlfriend when he only suggested the idea out of jealousy of me hanging out with other guys. He wanted the perks of having a girlfriend without any change to his current work, gym, sleep lifestyle. We argued pretty much every day, I cried a lot, and then 3 months later I broke up with him, lol. In contrast, the guy I'm dating now is awesome. He actually was a smoker when we met. I told him I hated it but didn't pressure him to quit. He decided on his own to stop cold turkey and amazingly succeed. I met both on Tinder BTW.
Guess it's time to tell you all about cat bones. Throwaway because this story makes me identifiable in real life. Me and my friend were drinking in Shibuya when we decided to sink to a new low and go to Gas Panic, a hive of scum and villainy, a tiny disgusting club disguised as a bar that required you to buy a drink on entry, with amazing deals like 1,000 yen Smirnoff Ice. Infamous for never checking ID and the signature syrupy grime layered on the floor. There we met two girls, one who was much younger, maybe 21, and convinced her older coworker to come out for a girls' night. The younger one immediately plants her butt on me and offers me a swig from a metal flask of whiskey that she apparently carries on her at all times. The older coworker looked about as appropriately depressed as one should being in Gas Panic. I was actually much more interested in the older one, so I pivot away from Flask Girl and talk to her. I find out she just turned 31 and that she was really sad about it for some reason, so her friend took her out to show her she still got it or something. IDK. That seemed pretty old to me at the time, but I don't really care about age much. Well, my friend was interested in the younger one and I was interested in the older one, so when they asked us to go to the club, TK lol, we went with it. But first, Flask Girl wanted to pound some juicebox sake, onikaroshi, to, in her words, Enjin wokakeru. I'd never done that before, so me and my friend get completely ripped. Flask Girl seemed annoyed that I rejected her for her older but cuter coworker, and was flirty with me all night, which seemed to make her friend even more glum. Next weekend I message the older one to hang out. I suggest pizza and a movie. She immediately offers to host at her place. Awesome. So her apartment is in a location that's about as inaka as you can get while still being in Tokyo. Completely in the middle of nowhere, it took me like an hour to get there. She meets me at the station with an umbrella and we walk 20 minutes in the rain to her place, which has this creepy shrine on the same street that she claps and bows to before we go in. When we enter, I immediately regret all of my life choices that led up to this moment. Every, and I mean every surface was stacked with layers of garbage, clothing, toys, and junk. The place smelled like someone sprayed Febreze into a rancid kabukicho dumpster. The bed too was absolutely covered in stacks of books and wrappers. Saying that she had a hoarding problem would be putting it mildly. There was no last train. This is my life now. She apologizes that it's a little messy, and I lie and say her gomiyushiki is not so bad. I immediately start clearing a space to sit on the chair, and we start eating the delivery pizza. After talking a bit, things were getting awkward because she kept asking me if I was messaging her friend. I wasn't, and how often I came to girls' houses like this, shamefully often at the time, but I didn't say that. She asks me if I'm interested in having a girlfriend, and, after seeing her apartment, I decided I didn't want to give her any false hope at all, and I say, no. I'm not looking for any long-term relationships at the moment. It's getting even more awkward, so I ask her to watch the movie, and she says, first let's read our fortunes. I'd forgotten the word for fortune-telling in Japanese, so I just agreed to it without knowing what I was getting myself into. She pulls out a thick-ass horoscope book and starts asking for my information and flipping through the pages. There's something about her voice that seems a bit unhinged, and she says, "Ah, I found you. It says here you were a butterfly. You go from one pretty flower to the next, take what you want and leave." I say, that's strange. I don't get what that means and who really believes in these things anyway. Anyway, so about that movie, and she interrupts, is that true? Are you a butterfly? You're a butterfly, aren't you? Butterfly, butterfly. And then she starts bawling her eyes out. I'm trying my best to console her for like an hour, but she's not having it. Eventually I'm like, do you think I should go? And she doesn't give me an answer, so I'm like, okay, I'm going now. I walk out into the freezing rain with no umbrella looking for a hotel or net cafe, but there's absolutely nothing. I walk around for like an hour with my phone dying and decide to give up and just wait until the train station opens. I get a phone call from her asking where I am, and being cold and tired I let her come get me. She is acting like nothing at all happened. We get back to her place and I say, let's sleep okay. And I start clearing, excavating, her bed. I eventually get to a box under her pillow and she says, wait, don't move that. I keep it under my pillow for good luck. I ask her what it is and she explains it's the bones of her pet cat that passed away. WTFFF. I'm pretty freaked out, but what can I do? So that night I slept on top of some cat bones. And you're probably curious, and I wish I could say no, that I would never sink that low, but yes, we did. And the next morning I fluttered away and never saw her again.
Greater than there was no last train. This is my life now. And #X200B. Just had to stop here because it made me literally laugh out loud. Okay, gonna read the rest now.
Mine is quite tame and a happy ending, but it gave me a chuckle at the time. On our first date I brought him by a taiyaki stand I often went to. My date talks incessantly about US and Japanese politics. Granted, that's his area of study and so he was knowledgeable, not just ranting, but still I don't get many words in edgewise. A few days later I went back to the taiyaki by myself and the owner, an aging Yankee type, comes over and says, "That guy you brought the other day, you dating?" Well yeah, he sure talked a lot. You better think carefully if that's really what you like, cuz we men, otoko wa na, don't notice or change our off-putting habits. I was a bit surprised because while he'd been friendly our exchanges hadn't been personal like that before. Suddenly he became all fatherly with the advice LMAO. It was heartwarming to feel someone was looking out for me. I ended up marrying my date from that day and the taiyaki owner was damn right. Husband doesn't shut up. But I'm the listener type so I don't mind hee.
What about a date that I thought wasn't a date? In my first year here I downloaded Hello Talk so I could learn Japanese and met up with this guy in his 30s, was early 20s at the time. He asked me about my job, and then asked me if I ever had sex with my students. At that point I was creeped out enough, and when it came time to leave, he was like, so should we go to a hotel? I made it clear that this wasn't a date and I went home, blocked him and took a few more weeks to realize that Hello Talk wasn't gonna help me learn Japanese.
Back in my single days in the 90s, I met a bunch of Japanese ladies via the old Tokyo classified ads. One, when I told her I'm American, got angry that Americans started the Gulf War, that she stormed out of the coffee shop. I'm not even in the military. Another one, I told her my favorite color was purple and blue, and she said I probably have a tendency towards domestic violence and wife beating. And the countless ones who got discouraged when my blood type was not the one they were looking for. Sigh.
LMAO, you should have told her you didn't appreciate Pearl Harbor.
Man, I feel like I could write a book on the subject. Here's my worst one. We met through a dating app. He was late 30s, I was mid-20s. He seemed pretty cool and well-adjusted. We had a lot in common and had fun dates. A few months after meeting we were drinking scotch at my place and just hanging out. At the time, I did alt support, i.e. answering calls for the dumbest poo at all hours of the day. One of the alts messaged me that he went to the city hall, and for my number he tried to put his phone number and it wouldn't fit. When the staff tried to help him, he was freaking out that that was his contact info, and even though it didn't fit in the box, it was accurate. This was after we explained my number several times. I swear he never put poo in long-term memory. I read the message and laughed. I told the guy that Jack was having trouble at City Hall because he's an idiot. The guy immediately smashed the scotch glass against the wall and started screaming that I'm not allowed to take messages from men. And then accused me of sleeping around. I told him to get out, and blocked him on all media. He ended up stalking me for over a year after. He left flowers at my door often, and letters in my postbox. He would wait around my apartment for hours for me to get home to beg for another chance. Luckily my neighbor was a vicious old lady who chased him off most days. The letters got more and more desperate, threatening suicide and more. The police told me just to move to deal with it. I moved a year later, and my old neighbor said that he still comes by the apartment complex and asks about me to this day. This happened 6 years ago.
Not my story, but I remember there was one guy on here years ago who was invited back to his Tinder date's apartment. He was just chilling and talking and then she randomly asked if he wanted to take a shower. He was like, no, I mean I took a shower before I met up with you, plus you don't have any of the shampoos and stuff I use, and was just confused as to why she thought he would need a shower. He didn't think he smelled bad or anything. Apparently he didn't realize that to Japanese people, take a shower just means freshen up before getting laid. The girl was kind of disappointed and quiet the rest of the night, and he said goodbye and she never talked to him again.
The guy was George Costanza.
Started chatting online with the guy, messages were exchanged and he seemed pretty nice. Yes, he was a single father, but I didn't mind. So, after a week of messaging we decide to meet up for lunch. The day before he apologizes and says that he'll need to bring his child because he can't find childcare. No big deal, I thought, it happens. We meet up for lunch and he leans down and tells his child, look, there's your new mum. I had a polite lunch with him and full-on blocked him. He was clearly a terrible father if he was telling his child that every woman he dated was their new mother.
Is this pasta? I swear I have seen the exact same story 3 times on this sub already.
I have a feeling it's happened to more than one woman. I had another guy ask, very seriously, when we should plan the wedding for and what month would be best for all of my family to come over for it. That was on a second date. Some guys in Japan just want to skip the getting to even know the person and go straight to the marriage part. I assume those guys also don't know how to cook or clean and really want someone to take care of them as well. I was dating another guy and he invited me over to his place. I agreed, and when he got there his place was a sty and he suggested that I clean it and cook us dinner. I laughed it off as a joke, but no, he was serious. He said a woman that really wanted to get married would do it to show she loved the man. That relationship ended that day because I turned around and walked out.
Went on a date with a friend of a friend. Ended up back at my place. You know what happened next. As we're putting our clothes back on, she's going on and on about how we shouldn't have done that and how mutual friend will find out about this and generally just panicking. Fell asleep, and when we woke up she says she's going to the station. I, like all gentlemen would, walk her to the station. She's still panicking and finally I snapped and I told her that she's acting crazy. Her response, why does everyone say that?
My worst were probably girls turning out to be 10 years older than their dating profile said. Happened a few times and one was especially obvious. She looked so old. I wasn't expecting a princess, but F me, I'm out on a date with Mumra from Thundercats. Edit. I remembered another. I met this one girl online and went to meet her, but it turned out she had been talking to me through a translation machine, whereas I thought her English would be quite good.
I had a friend who I met online a couple years before I came to Japan. We got along pretty well and talked frequently enough. When I came to Japan, I was so excited to meet him. He was totally my type. Met up a few times, had sex and some really fun dates where he even took me somewhere that showed he paid attention to the stuff I like, etc. Found out he was married. Claimed he wanted to leave his wife, but it never seemed like he was going to. I was pretty bummed. He was super cute, into a lot of the same stuff as me and had an amazing voice, liked voice acting and singing. He was a joy to have in karaoke and he would send me voiced clips for his voice acting, especially some saucy like Otome game kind of poo, which was hot as hell. I was hugely disappointed, but I wasn't going to mess around with a married man, and even if he left her I don't think I could trust him.
In Japan, a wife has the right to sue the affair partner of her husband if she finds out who it is, presumably for wrecking the home. I only found this out because a Japanese girlfriend of mine's husband cheated on her and she settled out of court with the app for 3 million yen. You dodged a bullet.
Dating, relationship story? Was in a situationship with a guy from Tokyo when I was living in Hyogo. We visited often and it seemed we would be more serious if I was closer, so thought I'd give it a chance and I moved to Tokyo. But, a month or two before I moved he started fading, and when I got here, he revealed to me he had a new girlfriend. Now I'm in Tokyo and boy, have I had a parade of experiences thanks to the heartbreak and loneliness lol. One that just kind of makes me laugh is a guy who came over for a late night hookup. My Japanese isn't so good and his English wasn't so good. We did the deed anyways, and before he left put his hands on his hips and proclaimed, "That's a great sofa." Then he left. I do love my sofa. Lol.
Went to see a movie with a girl she wanted to see. It was an anime, so I didn't check up on it. Neither did she apparently. Turned out to be a WW2 time-based anime where a family loses half their family and others are injured by American bombers. I'm American BTW. By the end of the movie I was speaking German just so I could leave the movie theater. Was an old place in Shibuya.
Reminds me of the time my Vietnamese girlfriend heard about a showing of a classic movie about Vietnam and asked me to go see it with her. She was nearly giddy in the first few minutes with the lovely scenes of lush forests and farmlands and peaceful village life. Then came the napalm, and the running and the screaming, and she rapidly became less enamored of the presentation. The film was Apocalypse Now, and she had fled the country with her family as a child after the fall of Saigon.
I met a girl on Tinder. We haven't even met IRL when she decided to dox me. I doxed her back. She contacted my company. I got fired.
What doxable things did you do on Tinder of all places? Ask her if she was a dog or a cat person? No one gets fired for being on a dating app. Not the whole story.
She got my info from my attached Instagram account and then found me on LinkedIn. Then found my mom's Facebook and found what my family does for work. She then insulted my dad for what he does and said she would never date the son of a window washer and some other poo. My dad owns a window washing company. I then did the same to her for her job and background. Then she contacted my company after I threatened to contact hers. The whole thing was really strange. I think we'd only exchanged a few messages before that. I'm not really sure what pushed her to do it, but she did and it's what happened. I can't explain it and wish I could.
Regarding the smoking guy, you should have immediately cut that off after the first lie. I don't know a single smoker in Japan or anywhere who only smokes under XYZ circumstances. They all pretty much smoke whenever they want to, can, allowed to, in the case of workplace, etc. Hence the addiction.
1. Talked up my dental hygienist for a month, even went out to eat and drink together. After that night, I let her know that I liked her, to which she responded that she has a boyfriend but she'd like to stay on good terms with me. Haven't heard from her in months. 2. Matched with this cute lady on Bumble, went out on 2 fun dates in 2 weeks. Plan to see each other again when I'm back in Tokyo. She ghosted me right before Christmas and then deleted her Bumble account shortly after that. Guess she found someone else. As an incredibly average Asian, non-Japanese American with a weak dating app presentation, well, let's just say I shouldn't focus on these apps to meet people anyways. A friend wants to introduce me to his wife's colleague soon. I hope she likes beards.
Greater than haven't heard from her in months. No poo mate, she does have a boyfriend.
An astute observation.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.